Song of Songs. It's a poem, and I had no idea when I wrote it would end up in the Bible. It's about two lovers, but it can also be interpreted as an allegory of God and His people. One of my favorite lines in the poem is easily missed by a casual reader. It's a good one.
King Solomon was the wealthiest and most powerful king of his time. However, it wasn't a massive hostile empire that ultimately led to his downfall. It was a series of seemingly small mistakes.
I will reign over Israel for 40 years, at first wise and good, a great king. By the end, I'm a total mess and have set my country on a path to sure destruction. Lots of regrets, to be sure. Why couldn't I have stayed wise and good? How did I allow my life to be worse than a waste? If you see how it happened to me, you can avoid the same pitfalls. Perhaps. My early story, father was King David, made me his successor just before he died. And even though I wasn't his oldest eligible heir son, he chose me as his heir. I never knew if it was because God wanted him to, or because I had the most promise, or because my mother Bathsheba conspired with the prophet Nathan. Somehow tricked my father into it. My kingship started off perfectly. Our nation was rich and at peace. God was ready for his temple to be built. I dealt quickly and fairly with my father's enemies. Israel was firmly mine to rule justly. I made an alliance with the Pharaoh of Egypt and married his daughter, both prohibited by the laws of Moses. It was clear those things would displease God, but I wanted to do them. I rationalized, convincing myself an alliance with Egypt was good for the security of Israel. I was acting as if God wasn't powerful enough to protect Israel. Time for one of my favorite lines in the biblical poem, Song of Songs. Catch for us the foxes, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards. The little foxes that ruin the vineyard. Code towards the little things you consider unimportant that can be so destructive. On a moral basis, I considered marrying the Pharaoh's daughter as unimportant. First little fox. One of the reasons I thought it was unimportant, God didn't seem to care. That was the second little fox. Why did I think God didn't seem to care? God appears to me in a dream. He offers to give me anything I want. I could ask for anything. I ask for a discerning heart to govern my people, to distinguish between right and wrong. Wisdom. God was so pleased with my answer. He gave me exactly what I asked for, that and great riches and honor, more than I asked for. Also, he reminded me to keep his decrees and commands. When things are going well, you make some of your biggest mistakes. Have you ever noticed that? It is so easy to overlook the little things, the little foxes, pretend they don't matter. It's so easy to rationalize why you should do the things that you want to do. Everything was going great in my kingdom. The economy boomed, everyone had plenty. It didn't seem to matter that my personal expenses were ballooning. Yes, a little fox. Everyone seemed to love the huge amount of public works to take care of my excesses and building projects. The water for my gardens had to be brought in from somewhere. Excesses. Yet another little fox. Everyone was hugely impressed by my extravagant palace that took 13 years to build, and yet another little fox. After 7 years of building, we dedicated the temple. God still seemed to be pleased with me. But But his warning to be obedient to him was more stern than in the first dream. Zechariah was one of the last prophets in the Old Testament, lived hundreds of years after my time. He was one of those involved in the rebuilding of the temple that I built for God centuries before. My temple took 7 years to build, required unimaginable amounts of money. The replacement, it didn't take long, and was quite inferior in materials and workmanship. However, the replacement was built to please God. And it did. This is what the Lord said to Zechariah about the replacement temple. Who dares despise the day of small things? You see, nothing that pleases the Lord is small, and seemingly small things that displease the Lord are not small in their effects. Horses. What can be wrong with horses? Gifts from other kings. I had been given some horses. Didn't think much about them at first. People thought I loved horses, people meaning foreign kings and all my many wives, people vying for my attention and affection. You can't believe the number of horses I was given. Oh, I actually did start loving them. And I couldn't wait to get more. I loved the chariot horses. Not much bigger than your ponies, but very powerful. I had so many that I had to build cities to house them, entire cities. Upkeep was wildly expensive, but I rationalized that away by saying that they were for national defense. Without saying so, I began replacing God's protection with chariots. Loved my chariot horses, but I was absolutely crazy about my Egyptian horses. They were taller, graceful, beautiful heads, loving eyes. I especially loved the honey-colored ones. By the time I was reminded that Moses had prohibited kings of Israel from having many horses, especially those from Egypt, I was drowning in horses, too engulfed to change my ways. And that same warning regarding horses, Moses also prohibited the kings of Israel from having many wives. Many wives? Well, how many is that? Many. Nobody marries 700 women at a time, not even me. I married the Pharaoh's daughter first, then some other royal princess next, and another royal princess after that, and so on. One every few days or weeks until I looked up and I had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. They each worshiped the god of their home countries, foreign gods. Not God. Not my God. When my first wife asked me to buy her an idol from Egypt, I thought nothing of it. It was a small thing. I know idols are powerless. Then another wife asked me for her idols. Well, I couldn't refuse her, could I? Then I was asked to attend a sacrifice by another one of my wives. Well, I had to go. Before long, I was building lavish temples to false gods. False gods of many different countries. So many buildings that they would still be used in the time of King Josiah, hundreds of years after my life. Catch for us the foxes. The little foxes that ruin the vineyards. Small things led to my complete disobedience to God. They caused me to lead my country into the worship of false gods from which it would never recover. Seemingly small missteps led to larger missteps, which led to giant leaps in the wrong direction on my way to my complete demise. Small things. You have been warned.